Hey everybody, welcome to week 5 of our Apex English 1010 online course. Whew, we are just charging through this semester. You guys just turned in your Project 2 response papers, and we are getting started this week on Project 3, your analysis papers. So in this video, I want to, first of all, talk a little bit about where we are in the semester. And then we're going to focus in on Project 3, and I'm going to walk through the assignment description so that you guys know the scope of the paper that you'll be working on for the next couple of weeks. Then I want to talk a little bit about the main text that we're going to be analyzing, which is Keeping Close to Home, Class and Education by Bell Hooks. It's a really rewarding, really thought-provoking, smart, good read. So we're going to be taking a lot of time over the next couple of weeks to really dig into it and break it down. So I want to go over just a little bit of context, I guess, for that piece. And then finally, I will be giving you your Chat Check-in 5 prompt. And it's going to be a fun one, I think. So hang on to that. Hang on for that. Hang on. Hold on, and I'll tell you that prompt at the end of this video. Okay, no more singing for me. I'm going to switch it over to our Canvas view, and we'll just jump right in. Okay, so just a quick recap of where we've been in this semester so far. You guys completed your summary papers, where we were really thinking about what we were bringing into the class in terms of our knowledge of language, the different types of languages and grammars that we have at our fingertips. We looked at a piece that really talked about grammar as it's evolving, especially on the internet, especially via social media. Excuse me. So we did Project 1, your summary, kind of a you are here moment. Then we just finished our response papers. So this, we were thinking more in terms of particular memories associated with school and the language of school. And, thinking back, everyone's experience is different, and y'all may have had different journeys in your education in regards to language. But we really looked at Rodriguez and how he described his journey from a private discourse within his family and in Spanish to the public discourse of the national language of English in the United States. We used Villanueva to kind of compare and critique and respond to Rodriguez, and just kind of spent Project 2 thinking about language in school and ways that our home languages or outside of school languages get contrasted or feel tension when compared to the language of school. So now we're going to be thinking less about past school experiences and more about where you're headed, which is Wayne State University, y'all. You're going to be in college, and so this whole project is going to center around a truly college level piece. Like I said before, we're going to read Bell Hooks is Keeping Close to Home. Bell Hooks is a phenomenal and very well respected scholar. And this essay really is what we would call, quote unquote, college level, because Hooks writes and speaks in a very scholarly tone. You'll see that, or you already have seen that if you did your summary for extra credit. So you know that this is going to be a more challenging read, and that's okay. But we're going to work through it, and we're going to do an analysis of this paper. So I'm going to talk through the assignment description let's do it right now. We'll just look at the assignment description, then I'll work backwards and look at the week 5 overview. So the Project 3 assignment description is an analysis. Some of you may have written analysis papers before. Some of you may be like, what? No, I've never done that. Either way is fine. As usual, we are just going to work with what everybody's bringing to the table. I will say, though, that if you have written, quote unquote, an analysis before, think about whether or not it was a nonfiction analysis or whether you were analyzing a piece of literature, because lots of folks may have had experiences doing what's called literary analysis. This is where you read a novel and you look for things like allusions and symbolism and stuff like that. That is not what we're doing here, okay? It's going to help you if you've done it before, but this is not the same thing. So eyes up, knees bent, ready positions, because we are walking into potentially a brand new genre that you're going to be asked to write. Okay, so the due date for this is August 2nd by midnight. This is going to be, excuse me, the longest paper that I've assigned to you this semester, 4 to 6 pages. I don't want anyone to freak out by that page limit. I mean, you want to shoot for 4 to 6 pages. I never, ever take away points for writing more, so just know that. And also keep in mind that your first paper in English 1020 is going to be approximately a 4 to 6 page paper. So right out of the gate, when you start English 1020, your first analysis paper, that's right, you're going to be doing analysis right out of the gate when you get to 1020, it's going to be around this length. So I wanted you guys to have practice tackling this size of assignment. Nobody panic. You're going to do great. There's so much to write about. There's no way that you're not going to have enough to say. I promise. Okay, so let's think about this. What is an analysis and how is it different from what you may have done before in, if you've done a literary analysis? Well, so think about the previous papers, right? Project 1 was a summary. Project 2 was response. And both of those kind of answer the question, what? What is this author arguing? What is my response to it, right? Now you want to answer the question, how? What is this author arguing? What is my response to it? And how is the argument constructed? So this is a huge thing. How is the author using evidence? How does the argument work within the text to create the response that you're feeling as a reader or that any reader might feel? So your thesis, your main point in this essay is to explain how the components of Hooks's argument connect to one another and influence readers. Namely you, but we're going to steer away from personal pronouns here. So how does it influence readers? Ideally, you will also be able to connect it to some other texts. More on that in a second. So here's the prompt. You're going to be writing an in-depth analysis paper. This is more than summary, more than response. It's summary and response together plus a really detailed breakdown of the component parts. So you definitely need to be able to briefly summarize and summarize correctly. More on that in a second. But you also need to draw connections between Hooks and at least one other text. So your analysis paper, different from a response paper, you're going to break down the Hooks essay into its component parts, then discuss or describe those parts using a particular perspective or theory or lens, and you're going to connect those parts to other texts, at least one other text, but maybe more. All right, so here's a really key thing to think about. We've been talking about connections to texts all term long. We talked about text to self connections, text to world connections, text to text connections. Well, where Project 2 had you making text to self connections, right? What is my response? And we made text to text connections. How does Villanueva connect to Rodriguez? Here, instead of making text to self connections, I want you to make text to world connections. And you're going to keep on making text to text connections with some articles that I have linked in here. Okay? So in this analysis, you need to be able to break down Hooks's argument and know how she's making her stand. What is she making as her evidence to support her argument? And she has a very clear argument. You're going to make text to world connections by connecting to, you know how we said that you're going to describe Hooks using theory, method, or a lens, a perspective. You have 3 options for that here. First of all, you can use the lens of language. And like we reviewed earlier in this video, we've been talking about language all semester long. Our personal home languages, internet languages, the language of school, how these all mesh and maybe come into great tension with each other, or maybe feed into each other and help things grow. So for this paper, if you choose option 1, you may analyze bell Hooks's argument in terms of genre, the type of writing that she's doing, and language. So some guiding questions for option 1. What does it mean that Hooks writes her argument as a chapter in an academic or scholarly book? How does her choice of language help or not help her argument? How does her use of examples support or detract from her main argument? Those are just some key questions that you might address if you pick option 1 for your analysis paper. Now, option 2, you could use the lens of theory, in particular critical theory. So you might analyze how she is thinking about her critiques of class and race divides. What does it mean that Hooks connects her experiences to those of her students and to explicitly racial and class-based systems? Now, we know from all of our conversations this semester that this question is totally connected to language. But here, we're kind of treating it as its own focus, okay? So you could focus on it in terms of language, or you can focus on it in terms of her critical and race-class consciousness. And what is she arguing that scholars should do in response? Okay, so that's option 2. Option 3, you can analyze this based on Hooks's role as both a person of color, a female, and a part of the academic system. So she goes to college at the beginning of the piece. By the end of the piece, she's describing her experiences as a college professor. So for this paper, you're going to analyze her argument about scholars in college through the lens of her role as an educator and your role as a student. So what is the effect of Hooks' personal narrative of being in school, both as a student and as an instructor? Got to get to the end of the essay to get that second part. Do her described experiences create tension? Like her experience as a teacher, does that come into tension with her experience as a student? Why or why not? Okay, so when you're making your text to world connections, you're going to be using one of these 3 lenses, okay, to do your analysis. To do your text to text connections, you can choose from any of these linked pieces. So this piece is by John McWhorter about how the coronavirus generation will use language differently. Or you can read this excellent essay by Ibram X. Kendi about how we are still living and dying in a slaveholders' republic. You can read this awesome think piece by Ben & Jerry's, yes, the ice cream company, published this article, 7 Ways We Know Systemic Racism is Real. It's really good. And it might help you in your analysis in any of these options. If you're thinking particularly about option 3, or maybe even option 1, this article, What Black Educators Built by Vanessa Walker, is a really good look into the history of education from a Black perspective. And this is an excellent article, a bit more on the scholarly side, but this could help you in any of these options to talk about Should Writers Use They Own English by Vershawn Young. Or you could use any of the other texts we've studied, or you could do a combo, but you need to at least pick one of these linked articles, okay? You could use more than that. Like we've done with every other project, I would like you to write a reflection letter at the end of the project, talking about what your goals were for the paper, what you want readers to get from it, what any obstacles or any great, awesome strides you made in the paper. And you can see that we're really working now on college level stuff. We're reading and analyzing and explaining college level material. We're going to be taking tons of notes. We're going to do a lot of reflection, probably in the process of doing this, and of course in your reflection letter, and we're going to be using lots of technology. So you can see all the project elements here, a lot of our usual process work, a rough draft, we'll do peer review, have conferences with me in office hours. Definitely going to include a works cited here because you'll have at least 2, perhaps more sources, and your reflection letter at the end. Okay, so that's project 3. Now, I keep talking about this piece, bell hooks, keeping close to home, and I'm pulling it up here because some of you may not have looked at it yet. Some of you may have already done your extra credit summaries, and good on you, because now you have a head start and you know what I'm talking about when I say Hooks is not messing around. She's going to use some very academic English, but she's going to use it to say some really important things. So I'm not going to go through this step by step because I'm going to post a mini lecture later on that's going to really break this down as far as I see it, just like I did with Rodriguez and Villanueva. But just want to do a zoom over, sort of like a scan with you guys. So this piece, it's 9 pages, but if you count these little pages, it's like 13 pages. So it's not super long, but you need to get all the way through it so that you can get to her main argument, which comes in, she talks about it throughout the piece, but it's not until around page 111, 112 that her real clear argument hits, okay? So make sure you make it all the way through. And I would highly recommend, and we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing handwritten annotations, we're going to do perusal annotations, and we're going to do some work with what's called reverse outlining. So just keep your head in the game. All of the homework assignments for this project are designed to help you work through this really difficult and challenging text. Okay, so let me go back out here. And before I get into our week 5 overview, and I'll walk through just what our assignments will be, I'm going to give you your Chat Check-In 5 prompt. You ready? All right, so for Chat Check-In 5, we're thinking about difficult reading. And we've been thinking about reading and making all these connections with our reading throughout the term. But so for this week's Chat Check-In, I want to know, what are 3 books you love and 1 book you don't? So what are 3 books? They don't have to be school books. They could be graphic novels. They could be fiction that you just read for fun. It could be a children's book that you just have fond memories of. But give me 3. 3 books you love, 1 book you don't, and why? You don't have to do a huge analysis about why, but just, what is it about the 3 books that you just love? And what is it about this 1 book that you really it wasn't for you? Okay? So Chat Check-In number 5, tell me 3 books you love and 1 book you don't. Now let's look at the overview and then we'll close out this video. So for this week, we're gonna obviously watch your week 5 instructor video, which you're already doing. High five. You chat check in 5, handwritten annotations, perusal annotations. This should feel very familiar, but I'm telling you, the last part of this week is for you to keep reading and keep revising your annotations, okay? So chat check in, handwritten annotations, perusal annotations. Maybe as you are looking at our perusal discussion as it unfolds, you're going to start seeing some new things. Maybe as you look at the Hooks Overview mini lecture, you start to realize some new things. So revise your annotations, jot that shit down, okay? Our grammar vid this week is all about prepositions, so that's going to be fun. And the little vid this week is so fun. Oh my gosh. I unabashedly put a Lin-Manuel Miranda clip in here. But it's a Wheel of Freestyle clip from The Tonight Show. It's super interesting to see how two masterful language artists use randomly generated words to create rhymes. It's very cool. But there's 3 different editions of this. There's the one I linked here, which is the first one. But if you have time, check out Volume 2 and Volume 3. They're just like so good. All right, so I think that that's it. I'm going to pull back to our full view after I'm done nerding off and close out this video. Okay, I think that about does it for my Week 5 overview video. I know it's a little bit longer this week, but if you need to rewatch it, go back to the spots that are going to be most effective. You're going to probably want to look at the overview of the assignment description. And definitely make sure you got that chat check-in prompt. I hope everyone is having a great start to your week. Please feel free to email me. Make sure you continue to communicate with your tutors, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye, everybody.